Right, we're going to talk about obesity now. New research suggests the traditional method of using body mass index, or BMI, is not as useful in measuring fat as waist to height ratio. Well, one of our reporters was brave enough to explain how waist to height ratio works. Take a look.
So how do you calculate your height-waist ratio? Well, my waist sadly is 103 centimetres, my height 186, and you simply take your waist and you divide it by your height, 186. It should be no more than 0.5. Mine is 0.55, which puts me at increased risk of metabolic disease.
So the researchers focus particularly on the way we measure obesity in children. The University of Bristol studied more than 7,200 9-year-olds to reach their findings. Now, 1 in 3 children in the UK are obese or overweight, according to NHS data. And as you can see in this graph, obesity rates rose sharply among 10 and 11-year-olds in England during the COVID pandemic and haven't returned to pre-pandemic levels. Well, for more on the findings now, we can speak to Professor Andrew Agbaje, who was lead researcher for the University of Bristol. Thank you very much for coming on the programme.
Thank you very much for having me.
So why is this alternative measurement of obesity better?
Well, we first appreciate the children of the 90 who have provided this data for us. They have voluntarily undergone this research for the past 30 years. And we found out from their data that when we measure obesity in children, we are not measuring fat alone, we are also measuring muscle. And when we relate it to metabolic outcomes, we realize that we are not getting accurately what fat's supposed to be doing, as if fat is bad. So simply because we are putting children on weighing scale. So our research tells us that BMI is not the best because it doesn't differentiate between muscle mass and fat mass. Muscle mass is protective against so many diseases. But with BMI, we assume everybody is overweight or many children are obese. But with weight to height ratio, we were surprised to discover that waist to height ratio tells us about fat mass and not about muscle mass. So with that,
well, just jump in there. Given that's what you found, would you like to see, therefore, the end of BMI, it just not be used at all?
I think that time will eventually come. But at the moment, an inexpensive usage of a measuring tape can tell us a lot about fat. So obesity should not be about weight, but about the fat itself, which is the problem. So BMI doesn't tell us so much about that. It tells us so much more about muscle mass because children have 4 times more muscle mass than they have for fat mass. So in that sense, we need a waist to height ratio, which a measuring tape so cheaply can give us such kind of nearly perfect result. For that reason, I would say that in our clinics, in the primary health care center, we shouldn't diagnose children with BMI alone. At the moment, we need to add the waist to height ratio to confirm if the weight status we are seeing is really due to fat mass. Otherwise, we may just be misdiagnosing children. Yeah.
Professor, thank you very much for coming on the program and talking us through that. Thank you.
You're welcome.